I know India is very polarized, and you don't want to see another pro or anti Modi video. Instead, I'm making a passionate play for balance in public discourse and respecting the final choice made by the voting public. It's a call for public commentators to present both sides of the argument and not dictate to people what conclusion they should come to. If Dhruv Rathi wants you to vote for Rahul Gandhi, Arvind Kejriwal, or Mamata Banerjee, let him make his case and leave the judgment to you. Instead, his fundamental proposition seems to be that you should not only disapprove of Modi but hate him 100%. And if you don't, you are a fool and an andhabhakt. While trying to portray Modi as a dictator, Dhruv is himself becoming one in an ideological sense. My main argument is this: everyone has the right to present their political viewpoint, but in the end, you leave it to the mature and wise voters of India to pass judgment and respect their judgment, whether you like it or not. That is what democracy is all about. Whether Dhruv Rathi, Ravish Kumar, Karan Thapar, etc. accept it or not, Narendra Modi is the elected Prime Minister of India. He won a massive mandate in 2014 and an even bigger mandate in 2019. That is the truth, whether anybody likes it or not. If Modi wins a third term this year, his detractors must accept the judgment passed by the electorate. That is what democracy is all about. I talked about the need to maintain balance in public debate. I don't know how much Dhruv Rathi and his team keep their minds open to all sides, but I do. And I will show concrete evidence for this at the end of this video. On balance, I'm an admirer of Modi and believe that overall he is the best prime minister we have had in a long time. But I regularly listen to Dhruv Rathi, Ravish Kumar, Karan Thapar, read The Wire, and even enjoy the jokes of Kunal Kamra. From what I know of Modi haters, they have become exactly what they accuse the Andhabhakts of: completely closed minded and living in their own echo chamber. Their hatred for Modi has become so intense that they have not only dropped any pretense of being balanced, but they also have started showing signs of paranoia. For example, look at how Dhruv Rathi portrays Modi in the thumbnails of his videos with menacing eyes to make him look like the demon he sees him as. Off late, you can also see the way Dhruv's face grimaces and his facial muscles tighten as he talks about Modi. When you are consumed by hate, the first thing you lose is your sanity. The irony is, this is exactly what they accuse the Andhabhakts of. If you look at the Quora website on Dhruv Rathi, the number one complaint about him is that he's completely one-sided. No one says that Modi is perfect. He has his own serious shortcomings. Many Modi admirers, including me, are utterly disappointed and ashamed to see the perversity of the Chandigarh Municipal Council chairman selection. We are ashamed when rapists from Gujarat are released on parole. The biggest disappointment about Modi is that his moral crusade takes a severe beating when the same opposition leaders who are being investigated for corruption suddenly become clean when they join BJP. Modi's recent comments about election rallies, about a minority community, and the snatching of Mangal Sutra are also uncalled for and not befitting the Prime Minister. It appears as if sometimes winning at all costs is BJP's only goal. But the hard truth is that there is no perfect politician in this world. Politics, by its very nature, is a dirty business. At the end of the day, in a democracy, Janata is the Janardhan, who will make their choice from whatever options they have, and their verdict is the only verdict that counts. In that sense, we've got to give it to the Indian voters. They have time and again shown their maturity since independence. The voters delivered their decisive judgment in favor of Modi in 2014 and again more resoundingly in 2019. The problem with the likes of Dhruv Rathi is that they don't like the choice made by the voters in these elections. Look at the narrative they create for each of Narendra Modi's wins. In 2014, he won because people wanted a change and he made a lot of promises. However, he then damaged the Indian economy and harmed people's livelihoods with the demonetization and the introduction of GST. How come he did win with an even bigger mandate in 2019? They say it's because he staged the Balakot strikes just before the election. He again played with people's lives during COVID. Despite this, if he wins the third time, democracy is dead. If he loses, then all is well with Indian democracy. Ironically, they hail the same electorate when the opposition comes to power in Delhi, West Bengal, Karnataka, Telangana, and elsewhere. In fact, in India today, it is estimated that 43% of the population is governed by non BJP parties. So the voters are giving as much chance to the opposition as they have to Modi. But for Dhruv Rathi, they become fools when they vote Modi, and Modi becomes a dictator when he legitimately wins an election. A dictator is one who deprives the people of their right to elect their representatives. Since 2014, elections at all levels of government have been held on time, and the results show that the electorate is mature enough to distinguish between state and central issues. No other leader in the democratic world has faced the electorate and sought their permission to govern as much as Narendra Modi has done. In fact, there is an election in some corner of India all the time, and every time Narendra Modi is front and center seeking validation from voters. When the likes of Dhruv Rathi don't like the choice made by the electorate, they take refuge in the so-called majoritarianism argument. Democracy, by its very nature, is majoritarianism. India is most polarized today, not because of Modi, but because social media is letting dinner table conversations come out in the open and people are freely expressing their views. Minority appeasement is one such major issue that was swept under the carpet for a long time in the garb of secularism. For instance, in a public ground in Bengaluru, the national flag could not be unfurled on Independence Day for 75 years because of objections by one minority community. Can you believe it?
A historic moment at Eidgah Maidan in Bengaluru's Chamrajpet. National flag unfurled at the controversial flashpoint for the first time since independence.
So it's not Narendra Modi who brought in majoritarianism, but the majority of the population who started expressing their long suppressed anger. If minorities are being suppressed ruthlessly, as made out in the Western media and the Dhruv Rathi brigade, how come no major communal riots have broken out since 2014? And how come the welfare benefits are directly reaching the entire population with no discrimination? If there is one thing I agree with Dhruv Rathi brigade, it is that we need healthy opposition parties in the country. But unfortunately, if you look at the prominent figures of the Indie alliance, they are more to blame for the current state than BJP. Dhruv is an open supporter of AAP. But in what way, shape or form is AAP any different than major parties? Is Arvind Kejriwal the perfect politician? Dhruv is also showing increasing fondness for Rahul Gandhi. Let us dissect Rahul. During the 10 years of the UPA government, Rahul had all the opportunities to become a minister and gain valuable experience in administration. He couldn't be bothered. Instead, he had the audacity to humiliate Manmohan Singh by publicly tearing the papers on a cabinet decision. According to Dhruv, a dynast like Rahul is more democratic than Modi. Give us a break. Now, as I promised before, I would like to give you evidence of how political commentators need and can maintain balance. I am currently producing a documentary series called Modi's India, tracing India's global footprints. You can see the first 3 episodes on YouTube. The documentary focuses solely on the foreign policy record of the Modi government as judged by a panel of experts, including global think tank experts, academics, former diplomats, and military leaders. They comment on Modi government's performance from political, security, economic, and future perspective. We invited about 100 experts from around the world, irrespective of their political persuasion. You can see it for yourself.
disciplinarian, Hindu, popular, clever, effective, disciplinarian.
Very successful, surprisingly so, because he didn't have experience in foreign policy, but he has raised Indian foreign policy to heights which we could not conceive earlier.
Boldness. He is a visionary. He is independent in terms of the policies.
Divisive. This is someone who enjoys incredible amounts of popularity, both in India and outside of India. But he is also one who has inspired quite a few critics, again, inside and outside the country. And I would also, quite frankly, use the term remarkable. This is someone who has really reinvented himself in such a big way. Again, over a relatively little amount of time. This is someone who had essentially been a pariah in the eyes of many Western capitals and many Western countries on the whole when he first became prime minister. And yet he managed to get to a point where he became an incredibly active and engaged player overseas, strengthening relations with countries throughout the West and beyond. He was performing at rock concerts in Central Park alongside the likes of Jay-Z and Beyonce. It's remarkable.
Efficient, clever, cunning, and divisive.
Strong leader, Hindu nationalism, divisive, polarizing fear.
Marketing genius, determined, focused, authoritarian in style.
He has provided strong leadership with a single-minded focus on changing India.
I would say experienced, hardworking, and self-made administrator.
He's on the one hand, he's highly charismatic. He's a strong leader. He's a shrewd politician. He's a can-do person. But at the same time, he's also someone who's somewhat controversial and divisive. So I think there are two sides to the story.
Sure, I asked them some uncomfortable questions, but I did not interrupt them or further challenge them and fully respected their judgment. I must say, they gave it back to me as good as they got. See for yourself. But if you look at the kind of most potent expression of, Hindus at the consecration of Ayodhya Ram Temple, is it fair to say then that when Indians visit ancient temples all around the country and see defaced idols, it hurts them deeply, which is now being channeled by way of unprecedented support for Mr. Modi? Many people in the country say that, hey, this is how we always felt. And now that we have a leader who is not afraid to voice that opinion, we want to go and vote for him. So in the light of this, one may argue that it's not Mr. Modi who is creating polarization, but in fact mirroring and channeling the majority view. Can we say that in a democracy, yatha praja tatha raja, than the other way around?
What you said was true, that the Muslims came as conquerors. Mahmud Ghazni destroyed Somnath once, twice, thrice, God knows how many times. There were other temples that were destroyed. Mosques were built on them. Modi, he has a knack for doing this, and he has a knack for telling Indians how they were brutalized by Muslim occupation. But there's another side to this story. First of all, yes, temples were knocked down by Muslims. But on the other hand, temples were knocked down by other Hindu Rajas as well, and there's lots of evidence of that. And further, that Hindus knocked down Buddhist temples, which came even earlier. The whole history of humanity is a sad one. It's one of aggression, of conquest, but it's also one of cooperation, of progress as well.
We've also uploaded full interviews to make sure that their unfiltered views are presented before the public. This is what democracy is all about. This is what we need today in any public discourse, a balanced perspective. Hope Dhruvrathi takes note and stops dictating the public and insulting their intelligence. We definitely need more Dhruvs in India to keep democracy alive and thriving. But we don't need them to polarize the country further with blind, one-sided arguments. Jai Hind.